Well, hello and welcome to Binge Watch, the podcast where we take a look at the hottest new TV and film releases on streaming television platforms. I'm Hannah Fernando, the group editor of Woman and Woman and Home magazine.
And I'm Ian McEwan, writer on TV and Satellite Week, TV Times and What's on TV magazines. And today we're looking at the new releases that will be available on Friday the 17th of May 2024, including Liverpool set teen whodunit The Gathering on Channel 4 streaming, and Netflix documentary series Ashley Madison, Sex, Lies and Marriage, about the hacking of the American Infidelity website.
And we'll also be checking out Rob and Rylan's Grand Tour on BBC iPlayer and Apple TV's The Big Cigar about America's Black Panther movement. But first, Ian, what is in the news?
In Netflix thriller The Undertow, heartthrob Jamie Dornan will play two roles, yes. A man in a troubled marriage and his estranged twin. What else is in the news, Hannah?
Well, Prime Video's drama The Better Sister will star Jessica Biel as Chloe, who leads a charmed life while her cash-strapped sibling struggles with addiction.
Interesting selection for you this week. If I had to choose a theme for today's podcast, and I know you often press me to do that, Hannah, it would be religious family vloggers. And you'll find out why a little bit later. But anyway, we're going to start on Channel 4 streaming with the new show that arrived on Tuesday, the 14th of May. It's called The Gathering. And here's a clip.
Police are investigating after a teenager was found unresponsive following an illegal gathering.
Kelly was attacked. By you?
Oh my God, is that Kelly? Does Coach know she does that?
Adam, this is my teammate, Jessica. Just your teammate.
Kelly made the team, you didn't.
What?
Your mum will be so proud of you.
So this is a bit of a whodunit. And so we start with the crime. We see a young woman being assaulted at an illegal beach rave on Merseyside. And then in each episode, we're going to flash back to tell the story of each individual who is possibly involved in what happened. Starting with Kelly, who is a gymnast from a working class family, single parent family. She's played by a newcomer, Eva Morgan, who I've got to say, she's brilliant in this. She's just an absolute natural, totally convincing. Her dad is played by Warren Brown, the lovely Warren Brown from £10 Poms. Although she's a very talented gymnast and she's in with a chance of representing her country, she's also likes hanging out with these free runners who like doing parkour around the streets of Liverpool, which is very much frowned upon by her coach. Now, one of the other girls in the gymnastics team is Jess, played by Sadie Soverall, who's also really good. She comes from a very well-off background, also a single-parent family, and her mother, Natalie, played by the brilliant Vinette Robinson, is the very definition of a pushy parent. And you will find out why. I'm not going to reveal what happens, but yes, Natalie is a bit of a nasty piece of work. Kelly has a friend called Adam, who is a free runner. She falls for this refugee who is another free runner. Meanwhile, Jess takes a shine to Adam, but her mum very much controls her sort of social life and everything she does. The gymnastics are interesting to see, and the free running, very impressive. Obviously, they use stunt doubles for those. It's about teenage life. It's about different parenting styles. It's about how kind of smartphones and social media have impacted those parent-child relationships and kind of relationships between teenagers. So, yeah, I really liked it. I liked the format. I really was invested in the characters. I was impressed. What did you think, Hannah?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. And I thought that, like you said about the dynamics, kind of social media and, you know, I suppose the phone and what has changed since a generation has a phone as an extension of their actual person, it seems. And then the relationship they have with their parents. I think that's really interesting and will kind of be really relatable to a lot of people. But also, again, if you're a parent or you're not a parent, I just think it's really interesting to see the different parenting styles. What is right, what is wrong? There's no manual, is there? So I think there's lots of kind of nuances in here and lots of bits to pique your interest, as well as the sort of obvious thing, which is the kind of whodunit type vibe, which of course goes through it, and it has got it's really gritty in places. So I think it's really interesting and quite multi-layered, which is good.
Something rather different over on BBC iPlayer. It actually landed on Sunday, the Sunday that's just gone. It's called Rob and Rylan's Grand Tour. And here's a clip.
You know what I look like? I've been on a dodgy sunbed. 10 minutes for a fiver, and they've got dodgy tubes. I'm a Caravaggio.
Are you pleased with how things are looking?
Oh, I'm thrilled with how things are looking. I think I've never looked better.
Rob and Rylan's Grand Tour. Watch on iPlayer.
Yes, so I didn't really know that these guys, I don't think these guys were particularly friends previously. I don't think they were anyway. And of course, there's lots of noise around them at the moment and talk of, are they in a relationship now or not? And it's been laughed off and all the rest of it. But of course, the rumour mill's gone into overdrive and there's been lots of column inches over it.
It's clearly passed me by.
It's all there for the taking. Just have a look. It's all there. And it wasn't helped because Rob something about how friendship can turn to love, which of course, sets the rumour mill racing even further. So there's no doubt about it. These two do have an amazing rapport. It works really well. And yes, it kind of shouldn't. At the very beginning, you hear Rylan. Let's not forget, Rylan started on the X Factor, real caricature of himself and has kind of found fame on that basis. But is really, in my opinion, talented. I think he's a really great presenter. I think he's really funny. And I think if the auto cue goes down, he's completely, adept to being able to continue. He's not wooden. He's fun. He's warm. And he's very, very different to Rob Rinder. Very different. I think he says at the beginning something like he's so incredibly bright, or the brightest man I know, or something like that. And everything that Rob is, Rylan isn't, and kind of the other way round. But there's one thing that really does relate to them both and is kind of played heavy on their mind, is that they've both come out of quite nasty divorces. And that's kind of where it starts, I suppose. And so whilst this is a grand tour, episode 1 to Venice, episode 2 to Florence, episode 3 to Rome, where you see, it's Italy, of course, it's beautiful. So amazing parts of the city. They go to they learn about all the kind of heritage, artwork. Rob Rinder's massively into his art, Rylan less so, and Rylan's kind of king of the of those kind of one-liners, and he just comes out with just really funny things. And it's kind of it's almost seeing them. Can they learn? What are they learning? What are they both learning about each other? But also, what can they learn kind of educationally? Can he be shaped as a human? All the rest of it. But it's very funny, and it's a bit, I suppose I could liken this a bit to the Amanda and Alan dynamic, in that it just gels, it just works, and it's just fun. And they bring to life, I think, or make accessible artwork, history, culture that wouldn't ordinarily necessarily pique the interest of youngsters, but I think this will. I think it will bring that whole kind of thing onto, I should say, their agenda. And I think the two of them, they're just very funny. They're very tolerant of each other. They're very accepting of each other. And not only is it what I've just described, but it's also a journey emotionally for them. And, when Rylan talks about the very, very dark times and the breaking down of his marriage, et cetera, Rob Rinder breaks down. It's really sad, and it's kind of almost like a therapy. So it's sort of reality TV meets some kind of culture fest, and it's an interesting dynamic. But I think it really does work, and the warmth between the two of them, given that they're so opposite on so many levels, I think makes it all the more surprising. What do you think, Ian?
Yeah, I think you've described it well there. First of all, I'm going to say Rob and Rylan are two of my least favourite people on television. So I wasn't really coming into this thinking I was going to enjoy it. And I mean, I'm so bored of the celebrity travelogue. I mean, we've talked about this before, but there's way too many of them. And this is one of the double act ones. You know, there've been quite a few, haven't there? Especially with the Strictly bods. I've done a few of these. So the shtick of kind of like Rob is the clever one and Rylan is like the Essex boy, that wears thin very quickly, I found. I don't know, Rob, he always has a slightly pained expression on his face, doesn't he? But I actually found the best things about it was the information which is usually relayed by Rinder about the Grand Tour and people like Byron and about the artwork and the architecture. I mean, of course they do, you know, celebrity travelogues, they always do the same thing. So of course it's Venice, so let's go on a gondola, let's do some glass blowing. You know, there's nothing that new here. And I kind of found that the journey aspect of it, like, oh, we've both been through breakups, you know, what are we going to learn? Can we mend our broken hearts? I didn't really buy into that. I mean, it's obviously, you know, the production staff probably thought this is a good angle, but I would say I enjoyed it more than I expected to, because, I mean, Venice, episode 1, wow, what an incredible place. So, and you know, they do look at some of the great works of art, as you say, like the Doge's Palace and the artwork in there. So, yeah, I found it perfectly entertaining way to spend a bit of time, even though I was a bit predisposed not to like it. Over on Apple TV Plus, we have a new drama series which arrives on Friday, the 17th of May. It's called The Big Cigar. And here's a clip.
The story I'm about to tell you is how I, Huey P. Newton, the Black Panther Party founder, was set free into a prison. I envision a world beyond conflict and violence. I want to transform society. This is just the beginning.
First up, it's Apple TV Plus, so you know the drill. You're going to get your first 2 episodes, and then it's going to be dropping weekly. So we're going back to America in the 1970s, and the story of the founder, or the co-founder, I should say, of the Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton, and how he tried to get away from the FBI, who were trying to track him down. I think he was accused of killing a policeman, and also I think he was accused of rape. Anyway, the backdrop to it is, it's a really interesting story, but there's also a really bizarre element to the story, which is a bit like that Ben Affleck film, is it Argo, where a film crew is used as a sort of cover for a mission. The backdrop is very interesting because I didn't know that much about the Black Panther Party, but they basically were formed, and of course with the whole civil rights movement and so on, and all these black Americans moving from the southern states up to the sort of northern cities and just facing, you know, terrible racism, especially from the police brutality, living in ghettos. One of the Black Panthers' aims, as well as lots of social projects that they did, like Breakfast for Kids and so on, support for black families, was to try and prevent black people being stopped and brutalized by the cops. And there was this law called open carry in America, where you could carry a rifle or a shotgun openly on the street as long as you weren't pointing it at someone. And so what they would do, they would follow the police at a distance, and then when they saw them, you know, stopping and searching a black person, they'd get out with their firearms and just, you know, make sure that no rights were being violated. Anyway, for reasons that will become clear, he gets involved with this. I mean, it's a true story. This Hollywood film producer called Bert Schneider, bit of an indie film guy. He'd worked on Easy Rider, the brilliant Easy Rider with Dennis Hopper, 5 Easy Pieces, the Jack Nicholson classic. Yeah, their paths cross, and basically Schneider really wants to get involved with the Black Panthers, but because he is, as Newton describes him, like a white Hollywood guy, he doesn't really want him to. But it turns out that they can be useful to each other, because the FBI are trying to track down and arrest Newton, and Schneider comes up with this crazy plan to get him out of the country. It's got a slight kind of blaxploitation vibe to it, and I think they're kind of trying to strike that balance between, this is American social and political history, but also it's almost a bit of a caper movie in a weird way, but the stakes are incredibly high, and it's all, this genuinely happened. So I felt it was something quite different that I hadn't seen before, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed episode 1. What do you think, Hannah?
Yeah, pretty quite, well, I say gritty. It's quite deep, isn't it, really, on so many different levels. And for me, open my eyes. I think we know so much, and then you see something like this, and you were saying about how that divide, that sort of the ability for the cops to brutalize these black people was just it's kind of, you kind of know it's happened, but just to see it like that. And I think it was I think I've read here that it was quite an interesting challenge for the team, because you want that entertainment value while also dealing with the real history, the necessary history that's in it. And I think that's really, really tough. And there must have been an awful lot of work that went into this to make this as accurate as it possibly can be. So there are times I think it's quite difficult viewing. Certainly found it quite difficult to watch. But also, like you said, it's a bit of a caper as well, isn't it? It's quite fun in places. You almost find yourself aligning with people that perhaps you shouldn't be aligned to, but you want them to do well because of what's happened, if that makes sense. So yeah, I not something I thought I would love, but I really enjoyed.
Yes, and in episode 1, you have an actor playing the comedian Richard Pryor, who meets Newton at a party and wants to play him in a film. Anyway, that's by the by. We're going to finish with something rather interesting, I have to say. It's a documentary series on Netflix, which arrived on Thursday, the 16th of May. It's called Ashley Madison, Sex, Lies and Marriage. And here's a clip.
Ashley Madison was ahead of its time.
The vision was to be the largest and only website for married people who wanted to have an affair. When I would go to trade shows, I would say, who's your biggest competitor? And I'd say the Bible.
Yes, this is a bit of a step change, isn't it, Ian? This is really, really different, but so interesting. As you say, Ashley Madison, Sex, Lies and Marriage, and it's on Netflix. And I suppose this was set in a time when the internet was just sort of bursting, I guess. And nothing was really, these days, even now, as well as I do, that at work, you're doing your kind of security checks, making sure that you've got two sort of ways of identifying yourself via email or whatever it might be. Two-factor authentication, that's what I meant to say. But, there's all these things that even we are still learning all the time, and how difficult and how easy it is for some people to scam you. And so this is a true story. This actually happened. So as I say, it was when the internet was just beginning to come to life, and this website was set up, and it specialised in connecting people that wanted an extramarital affair. And it was like, I think it was the person that set it up who said, it was asked who's the biggest competitor for you, and he said the Bible, because there was no other competitors at this time. Suddenly this internet site was going absolutely wild. People, a bit like keyboard warriors, feeling that they could just sort of write anything they wanted. It would go into the ether of life and be lost. And of course, we all know that that's absolutely not the case. You leave a footprint, don't you? It will come back probably to haunt you. And this is the problem. So online security was in its infancy, like I said, and this site was literally an accident waiting to happen, because it wasn't just your regular average person involved. There were high profile names as well that were also brought into this, and hackers got in and they started to expose the contents of that site's database, names, information. People were sending pictures, and it was just ruined a number of people's lives. And you could say it was brought on themselves. You shouldn't have been doing that stuff in the first place. It's all very easy to sit in your ivory tower, isn't it? But it's really interesting, I think, to see how far we've come and to think that, how many people would fall for that again. I actually think people still would. I think it still does happen, and there are hackers still around, even when you think you're the most secure. But this was, it's embarrassing. It's awful. I think at times in there, it's kind of laughed at, like it's quite funny. It wasn't funny for the people involved, obviously. And thoroughly worth a watch. I kind of, first of all, when I looked, I thought, I don't know if this is just a bit, but we all know what happens when, things get leaked. But this takes it to another level. I think they do it really, really well. It's really interesting. What do you think, Ian?
Really good. Obviously, it was a huge news story at the time in America, but not so much over here, I don't think. But yes, you're hearing from various different bods, people who worked for Ashley Madison, people who used it, the team that was brought in to try and find out who are these hackers. The hackers said, we just want you to close down the business completely. They weren't asking for any money, and it's never been established who it was. Was it a competitor? Was it an inside job? Was it someone who had a beef with the sort of chief executive who turns out to be quite an interesting character? So there's that whole aspect and what happened when the names were released. And as you say, it was serious. At least one person committed suicide because their name came out and their marriage broke up. And they talked to one couple, and this is where the religious family vloggers angle comes in. So there's this young couple who start vlog. They're both Christians, and they start vlogging about their family life and how perfect and great it is. And of course, he'd been on the Ashley Madison website looking to hook up with people. So yeah, that story all unfolds. There's a very interesting, charismatic character who worked in the marketing department of Ashley Madison. He's very good value. We hear from these Swedish cyber fraud experts who were brought in to try and find out what had happened. But then as it goes on, you also start finding out some very interesting things about how Ashley Madison was run, which I wasn't aware of at all, and just add an extra layer of intrigue. I thought it was very, very interesting documentary series. And often these things are overstretched, but this felt about right at 3 episodes. Now we've got to that time, Hannah, where we find out what the heck you've been binge watching this week.
Clarkson's Farm. Is there anything else to watch this week? It's all about Clarkson's Farm. Do you know, it's really funny. When this started, everyone was a bit negative, weren't they? And the diddly squat farm shop and all the rest of it. This is just utterly gathered pace. And everywhere I look, it's like, Clarkson's Farm is the best TV. You've got to watch it. And then seeing the slightly sort of kinder side to Jeremy Clarkson. So yeah, I've been languishing there. How about you?
Yeah. And not only that, it's an absolutely massive show for Prime. Like, the numbers are incredible. So yeah, huge success. Well, I've been watching something else about religious family vloggers, of course, Hannah. On Channel 5, there was a really good documentary called Abused by Mum, the Ruby Frank Scandal, which is about this Mormon family from Utah. And I won't say too much about it, but yeah, it's a pretty shocking story of child abuse that is just quite bizarre in many ways and very moving and upsetting. But yeah, a good watch and will be available on the 5 streaming platform. Okay, we've just got time, Hannah, to look ahead to next week's offering. So what is on the binge watch menu?
Well, Jennifer Lopez heads into space to capture an AI terrorist in Netflix sci-fi Atlas. Of course she does.
And a new Disney Plus rockumentary recalls the life and times of legendary US group The Beach Boys. Yes, fantastic stuff. So we look forward to those and much, much more. But in the meantime, listeners,
watching.